Hi, Joe Cerrone.
And Al Rosen.
Welcome to CAD 134 in our weekly Zoom meeting. This week, we're going to cover Module 5 and 6. Al, can you tell us about what you have done to the main splash page here?
Certainly, we have a quick video up on top there. It's in purple magenta. If you left click on it, please, Joe. It's 36 minutes. We're not going to go over all 36 minutes, but we're going to go over about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And that's what that is right there in front of us. It's 2020. It's pretty new. And all it's going over is our PDF, how it is, what our standard is. You can see that's chapter 4, goes over all that at the same time. So it shows it's our different kind of layouts for text, how to select it, how to name them.
Right, and we talked about this. Not all of the fonts will do all of the justification options. And so as you work on these exercises with text, pay attention to the text style, and then the fonts that you choose don't always do all the justification options.
Yeah. As you see what he's doing right now, he's setting up, ready to go for different kind of drawing.
So it's like a TV show, and this is a rerun because we've kind of run through these. But again, you know, it's a great reference for you to go through and find out how to do technique. And so Al's got these color coded in purple as a video. This one's pretty long, but of course you can go through it at any speed you want. Let's talk about the book, Al.
Okay, mod 4 and 5, 4, 5, 6. Right now, objects, chapter objects says 4 and 6 over there. So you can see what the objects that we're going over here. Pardon my voice, please.
I'll talk a little bit while you clear yourself up there, get a drink. So last week we went through different options within the text command. And so when we're looking at text, we have this D text, which stands for dynamic, and DD edit, dynamic editing text. And this is just because AutoCAD's been around for so long that as computers develop, they develop new words and terminology for it. But essentially, we're just working with justification options. And remember, when we're using CAD, we're not using it as a word processor. Although it does word processing, we're using it as a design tool. And so when you think about text, think about it as, I'm going to make the signage, or I'm going to make the logos, because it's vector-based data and we can drive machines with it. And so these exercises for text just basically get you used to being able to work with that. And then once you do understand how to work with that, you can do things like signage and things like that. So we went through that last week. Remember to spell check your drawings, because remember, if they find spelling errors on your drawing, then they start to think that there's other things with it. All right. So chapter 4, we covered in pretty good detail last week. We went through text and creating tables. Chapter 5 goes through working with plot styles and with viewports. And so we do have the PowerPoint for that and the objectives. And the main objective is to be able to work with these viewports. We're not going to spend a ton of time on these color dependent plot styles, because color is a very tricky thing to work with. As you start to get into rendering and making things look perfect, your CAD manager typically will set those things up, because we've all seen like certain colors that people brand. And so when I worked for Signode in Glenview, they had a Signode green, and it was kind of a forest green. It wasn't just any green, but you had to match their color. And so your CAD managers will spend a lot of time tweaking the colors and the styles for you. But once they're set up, you can just open the title block and that is there. And so we can go into that in depth in a little bit more of an advanced fashion. Paper space and model space and viewports are the main thing that we want to be able to work with here. And so as we look at the exercise here, Exercise 5.4 is a good segue. And so in exercise 5.4, we took our conference rooms that we drew 2 weeks ago. And what we're going to do is we're going to go and walk you through how to put those onto viewports and set those up. All right. And so what I have here for you is these different conference room drawings. And I think I'll just start with this one right here. And so if I turn off the grid, here it is. And we do have one of the students' files here. So if you're the student who created this, it's great. We're going to use it to develop this video. Once you have the drawing created in model space, the idea is model space is an infinite drawing board. You can put all kinds of things into it. And so if I wanted to, I could insert the other CAD geometry from the other drawings. And so let's say I wanted to put all of these together. And so I want this drawing in the other one. What I can do is go into model space and just copy it. And so I can say, I can select it all and I can say edit, copy with base point, and put a base point on it right here. And then I can go back to my other drawing. And then I can paste it in, Control V. And so here it is. I'm going to go and track myself so that the walls, so that they're all kind of even. Put them far enough apart so that when you create the viewports, you don't see the other objects. And then if I come back and I get another drawing from here, I'm going to go to model space. You can work in the viewports. And so if I double click here, this is what's called floating model space. And the command for it is a command called tile mode, TILEMODE. And so tile mode, when you designate it as 0 or 1, will go between model space and paper space. So if you're ever like, hey, I can't figure this out, learn how to use the command options. And so again, tile mode 1, I'm in model space. And then again, I can just go and copy it with the base point. And so I'm going to say copy with base point. We'll select the base point. We'll select the objects. Might as well take the chair. Not sure if I have it. And then we'll go back to our other drawing. And we'll paste that one too. So I'll say paste. Okay, there we go. And then I like to track these over. And so we have 3. I think there's one more in the drawing. So let's add one more. Let's see if there's an interesting one.
So make sure you understand that the difference between copy and copy with a base point, please.
Maybe you can talk about that.
Okay.
Because I think you're there.
Yeah. Between copy and copy with a base point, copy means it's going to copy the whole object, so it's like copy with a base point. But the only difference between is we can specify our base point where we're going to take it from one spot and move it into another drawing. And we have more accuracy where we want to place it. If you just want to place a copy and put it any place, that's great. But unfortunately, it's not going to be exactly where you want it. As you can see, it highlights the endpoint of that other room corner. That's the base point of it. You drop it in, and you have full control of it.
So let's say that we're facilities managers and we're managing these classrooms. These are all classrooms, and we want to go and set up a drawing for these. So if we look at our exercise here with viewports, what I did was I copied with a base point these other drawings, and it doesn't matter which ones you choose. I just took 4 conference rooms. And then, like we were talking about, we're working between model space and paper space. Now, the command called Viewports is a 3D command. And so if we demonstrate that here, what I can do is I can type VPORTS. And while you're in model space, what you can do is you can actually go and set this up where I can say 4 left, and then you can toggle between 2D and 3D. And so typically I'll make this view. And so since it's not a 3D object, it's not going to be as interesting. So let's just go with 4 equal like that. And then we can okay that. And so this is what they did in the textbook. It's just 4 equal viewports. When you have something that's 3D, it's a little bit more interesting, but we can go viewports and we can go 4 left. And then if we go and we toggle these to 3D, that would be a 3D wireframe. We could go in here and we can toggle the different views. And so you can set up whether it's a top view, a front view, or a right side view. I don't want to get too far down the line with this because this is sort of an old technique. It works good for 3D where you can have a 3D model and then you can go to the top, front, and right side views. But for our purposes, we'll just use a single viewport in model space. Single, okay. And then I don't know why it lost my color, but I'll go back here to options and I'll go to my display settings and I'll go back here, applying close, okay that. And so it went into that 3D perspective thing. And it's just the way Autodesk is. And so we're at 10 minutes into the video, so I'm going to speed this up a little bit. So that's the viewports command, and that's a demonstration on 4 equal viewports. Using MView to restore the viewport.
What that does, it does a couple different ways. It allows it to restore it in multiple parts, one part, or you can take and put how many viewports and make viewports right in front of you.
So here's a good application. What they have here is this is a paper space, I believe, with 4 viewports. And then what they've done is they've set the scales in each of the viewports. So we're going to replicate that. And so if we come back here to our drawing with the conference rooms in it, and this chair just, I'm going to have to get rid of it. And so what you do is you come back over here to your template, and in your floor plan template, you want to avoid viewports on top of viewports. And so what I typically do is I'll just delete this viewport out. And then I'll go to my home tab and I want to have my layers here set for the viewport layer. So I'll go to the viewport layer and I'm going to make it red so that we can see it. And then what we would do is we would put the viewports in. So we'd say view, viewport, and I'm just going to put in 4 viewports. And it'll automatically put those in for us. But it won't designate which object we want in each viewport. And so I can double click in one viewport, I can center it, I can bring that up, and then I can set the scale in that viewport. So if I say 1/8 of an inch equals a foot, and then we do the same thing for this one, you want to kind of center them in there, and then you want to drop in your scale. And what you'll find is that this is way better than working on paper. Because when we used to work on paper, you'd have to get another piece of paper if you ran out of room. With AutoCAD, it's an infinite sheet of paper, and we just scale things to fit on that paper. And so this is an 11 by 17 this is an 11 by 17 title block. And so we can then see what scale we can display these items at based on whether or not they fit. And so don't overthink it. What you want to do is just be able to work with viewports. And so here I have my 4 conference room viewports. And then what you want to do after you set the scale, we could put some kind of note in text like they did, where I can come out here in paper space, and then I can just copy it. I like AutoCAD because I don't have to spell it right. It catches it for me. And so what you typically do is you put your paper space things in paper space, and they are for like working on a drawing with a border. And so I'm not sure how come I have 2 there. There it is. It's just a graphics card glitch. But what you want to do is you want to have your viewports and then your paper space. And so paper space is the frame. It's the title block. It's where you put the text. It's where you don't have to calculate things. Because in the model space, or these floating viewports, these are set up at full scale. And so if I were to measure this, and I want to know how big this room is, I can come over here and I can measure it, and it is 19 feet. Okay. Versus when I'm in paper space, and if I want to measure something, now we're looking at my title block, and we're probably more like 17 or 1 foot 3 inches, so 15.5 inches. That's how that works. Paper space is the paper, and the viewports are windows into model space. And so what you can do is you can create that drawing like they've done here for that. The other thing you can do with viewports, and they don't really talk a lot about it, is that you can have viewport layering. And so they go into plot styles and things like that, where you can have certain plot attributes, which we decided we would talk about at a later time. But if we go and we look at our drawing here, what I like to do, and I've taken interior design courses at other colleges, is I'll make a master drawing, and then I'll freeze and thaw certain layers in the viewports. And so this third button right here is called Viewport Layering. And so what I can do is I can go and I can turn off different layers within the drawings. And so if I come in here and I look at what layer was that created on, layer 0, and I'm a little worried that we didn't create enough layers here to be able to show it, because I have a feeling I'm not going to be able to turn them off because they're set, and I'm not. But this third layer here will allow you, so for example, if I turn off layer 0 here, everything disappears. I turn it back on, it shows it again. If I were to go and take these items and put them onto a layer, and I put them on a different layer, like this one here, and then I turn off that viewport layer right here, this is a great way to manage the models through viewports. And so what a lot of your designers will do is they'll have a floor plan, and then they'll have the layer for the furniture, and then they'll have another layer for the electrical, the data cabling, and for the lighting. And then you can keep everything all stacked up in model space, but you can filter them in the viewports.
You can also go into layer properties, please, Joe.
Sure.
And what that does is it opens up more of a view of that arrowhead going down, and you can make it larger. You can see what's going on, and every time you break it over there, it says VP series on and off lock layer, like master lock. You can use it. You can plot or not plot it. So if you're going around there, you have 5 or 6 different views or different drawings. You can trim off and plot them and send them to people, and so they can see each one individually if you want to do it that way also.
AutoCAD is made by computer programmers, and they like it to be a general design tool. They like it to be able to have all these nice colors and renderings. There are stronger programs for it, but AutoCAD still holds its own from a standpoint of being very utilitarian. And so as we start to work with these, one of the things you can do is you can set up the colors and the layers, and then you create these virtual books. And so you can manage your enterprise like these conference rooms with these floor plans and with these different techniques that we'll show you. And so the technique we're showing you, just how to organize and how to be able to work within these viewports, because then I can go through and I can manage the furniture inside of it.
Okay, Joe, go back to AutoCAD real quick, please.
Sure.
Okay, double click so it says layouts, please.
I'm not sure what you mean.
On the bottom where it says floor plan, down below, down right next to it, please. Just next to it, double click in there, please. It will say, instead of model, it will say paper. There we go. And now if I want to draw a circle, please, I want to go with instead of model, I want to go paper, please. Joseph, I want to say paper, not model. I want to be in model on layer.
So you want me to go here?
No, I don't want to be in model. I want to be on paper, please. There we go. Perfect. Now, go to circle, please. You can mark circle right below there someplace, any place, doesn't make a difference. Left click. Now, zoom up, left click on it. And you want to go to viewports real quick. And when you go to viewports, this is object on the bottom almost. Left click on it. Double click inside of it. You can zoom up into one of them, please, if you want, or two of them.
Graphic card issues, but
yeah,
you can create these polygon shaped viewports. And the difficulty I'm having with it is that Control R will toggle between viewports. And so what I do find is that you do need to be a little bit experimental with some of these as you go through and you set them up. It can be a bit confusing with the way the graphics card is set, but I could go into these and I could do some other things. But I think the example we wanted to show here was how to create a viewport from an object.
That is correct.
And so that's that. All right, Al. So if I go tile mode and I change it to 1, I'll be in model space, and then I can go out here, and then I can come back here to my paper space, and then I can type P space, and I'm in paper space, Z for zoom, A for all. And that's an example of how to set up these viewports. A lot of times what we like to do is we like to put the objects on a viewport layer, and then we like to turn that viewport layer off. And so then it appears like the objects will float on the paper. We can still access the viewports by double clicking in them. And then when it comes down to printing this exercise, what we can do is if we follow the textbook, we can print to a PDF. And so I can say File, Plot. And it has this thing called batch plotting or sheet sets, which we'll go into at a later date. But it allows you to print an entire book, and it's great. AutoCAD has a lot of management tools in it. Plot a single plot. It gives me a warning because it ties my plotter to my printers. And so when you start to set up these different drawings, they're tied to the printers. And so if I tie this to a PDF, and then I say, okay, it's an 11 by 17. I'm going to go with layout, and I'm going to say full scale. Plot style, we'll just take the AutoCAD default, and I'll preview it. There we go. So this is how you can manage your styles. Plot, and it'll plot to a PDF. And so I'm just going to throw this on my desktop, and I'll say save it. And there we are. We're all set. Another thing that we can do with this is that we can, sorry, I'm getting page, back to my AutoCAD. So you can plot them out as a PDF. I can also plot to a printer by saying File, Plot. And if I choose one of the printers, it will only print to the sizes that I have available. So when I choose my office computer here and my office printer, I'm going to choose one of these network printers. So these are the way the network is laid out. And so in room P130, I have a laser printer. In P134, I have a nice big design jet. And so I'm going to choose that as my printer. And what you notice is that I'll get all the paper sizes with the design jet. And so here I have all the paper sizes from small to large. And so that's the other thing that you can do with your drawings is that scale is determined by how much area you have to print in. If I'm printing on an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, then my conference rooms need to be scaled at 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. But if I have a bigger sheet of paper, I can scale them bigger. And that's why your architects are always carrying around these big rolls of drawings, because the enterprise is so large and so very common to have D or E size sheets of paper. And those paper sizes are tied to the plotter printer settings within the plot dialog box. I'm going to cancel that. All right, let's see what else we have here. And if we go back into our drawing information, there's our chapter objectives. Here's our viewports.
We might want to touch on M view, please, a little bit.
Sure.
Turn back on the layers for viewports, please. And if you type in M view, one word, please. And it's going to ask you to select one of the viewports. So select one of the viewports, rectangle. Now select one of the viewports that are currently there. Go. Okay.
It doesn't let me, we'll go into that later, Al. I think, you know, from a standpoint of our video, we're at about 26 minutes.
No problem.
But essentially, as we work with paper space and model space, what we want to be able to do is to be able to print drawings at scale. And so by creating these viewports, we have the viewport set, 1/8 of an inch equals a foot, and I can lock that down. Same with this one, 1/8 of an inch equals a foot, and I'll lock them all in. And so I'll lock them in. And then the idea is that you go and work with your facilities managers and you bring your architectural scale, and then you can go through and determine what you want in which rooms, and it will be set up at scale. All right, so that covers our chapter 5 in our basic overview of chapter 5. I'm going to stop this recording and we'll make another one because I'm afraid that we'll get into too long of a video. And so as we take a look at this, we're going to just cover our chapter 5 information, which was here in our chapter outline and how to create these different drawings. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording. At least I'm going to try. Let's see if it lets me. I'm going to stop the recording here and we'll open things up for questions.